Settle in, dear listener, and let your thoughts drift back to the late 13th century, where our tale begins in the quiet hills of England. It is around 1286, and a boy named Hugh Despenser the Younger is born into a noble family of modest standing. No vast armies or ancient legacies, just the steady rhythm of feudal life. Picture the scene: a stone manor bathed in the soft light of dawn, where young Hugh grows amid fields and forests, learning the ways of knighthood and courtly manners. His fortunes shift like the turning seasons when he marries Eleanor de Clare, granddaughter of the mighty King Edward I and niece to the current king, Edward II. Under an ancient oak, they exchange vows, her gown flowing like a river of silk, binding Hugh not just to her, but to the glittering web of royal power. This union opens doors once locked, drawing him closer to the throne. Yet even then, whispers of ambition stir in the wind. As the sun rises higher, Hugh dreams of more: lands, influence, a place at the king's side. Rest now, as this humble start sets the wheel of fate in motion. Now, let the story unfold further, into the heart of the royal court where shadows and secrets intertwine. By 1318, Hugh Despenser has risen from his modest roots, his marriage paving a path to power. Imagine a lavish chamber in the king's palace, where torches flicker against walls adorned with tales of old conquests. King Edward II, a man of passions and weaknesses, appoints Hugh as his chamberlain, a role of intimate trust, granting daily access to the monarch's ear. Kneeling before the throne, Hugh accepts the honor, his eyes gleaming with unspoken hunger. Edward, enthralled by his favorite's charm and counsel, leans close, sharing confidences that shape the kingdom's fate. But the courtiers in the corners murmur, sensing the shift. Hugh's influence grows like a vine, wrapping around policy and favor. He begins to whisper of lands to claim, enemies to silence. The chroniclers note how his proximity breeds resentment, for in an age of feudal bonds, one man's rise often means another's fall. Breathe deeply now, as the seeds of envy take root in this gilded world. Drift deeper into the shadows of ambition, where greed paints the landscape in hues of gold and blood. With his position secure, Hugh Despenser turns his gaze to wealth, exploiting the king's favor to amass vast estates, especially in the wild marcher lands of South Wales. Picture the scene: rolling hills shrouded in mist, where Hugh rides atop a fine steed, his robes embroidered with symbols of power, directing the seizure of properties from rival nobles. He manipulates courts and laws, stripping lands from those who dare oppose him, enriching himself while the kingdom whispers of injustice. The Vita Edwardi Secundi laments how all men turned their hearts against him because of his pride and wrongdoing. Fear spreads like fog through the valleys. Barons who once feasted at the royal table now huddle in secret, their faces etched with fury. Hugh's actions forge not allies, but a chain of enemies, each link forged in resentment. As the winds howl through the castles, the balance of power teeters. Close your eyes gently, feeling the tension build like a gathering storm. Let the tale carry you now to the brink of conflict, where exile tests the mettle of even the mightiest. By 1321, the barons' resentment boils over. A coalition demands Hugh's banishment, forcing King Edward to exile him and his father across the sea. Imagine the rugged coast, waves crashing like accusations as Hugh boards a ship, his face a mask of resolve amid the storm. But exile is fleeting. The king, unable to rule without his favorite, recalls him the next year. Hugh returns like a vengeful tide, leading Edward's forces in a campaign of retribution. Fields once green now bear the scars of battle, rebels scattered or slain. More powerful than before, Hugh becomes the king's instrument, his whispers turning to commands. England bends under his rule, but with every victory, the seeds of deeper hatred sprout. Chroniclers describe him as a shadow king, his grip tightening on the realm. Rest quietly, as this return sows the winds of greater rebellion. Now, sink into the intrigue of betrayal, where unlikely allies weave a web of downfall. Hugh's dominance creates foes in the highest places: Queen Isabella, Edward's neglected wife, and Roger Mortimer, a marcher lord once imprisoned by Despenser's schemes. In 1325, Isabella journeys to France under diplomatic guise, but her true purpose simmers in shadowed halls. Picture a candlelit room overlooking the river, maps unfurled as Isabella, her voice steady with resolve, allies with Mortimer. He acts as if he were king. Jean Lubel would later write of Hugh, and now the queen demands his removal, a plea Edward ignores. Their pact forms in whispers: rebellion, invasion, justice. Mortimer's eyes burn with old grudges, Isabella's with royal pride. As the fire crackles, plans take shape, drawing in nobles weary of tyranny. The air thickens with promise and peril, for this alliance will shake the throne. Let your breath slow, as the story edges toward upheaval. Feel the pulse of revolution now, as the flames of discontent spread across the land. In September 1326, Isabella and Mortimer land in England with a modest army, but the realm rises to greet them. Imagine the misty shore at dawn, ships creaking as warriors disembark, banners of hope unfurling. Towns open gates, nobles pledge swords, commoners cheer, for Despenser's rule has poisoned too many wells. Edward and Hugh flee westward, horses pounding through rain-soaked fields toward Wales, seeking loyal ground that no longer exists. The rebellion sweeps like wildfire, entire regions turning against the tyrant's shadow. Chroniclers record the joy of the people, long oppressed by false trials and seized lands. Hugh, once untouchable, now grasps at fading power, his world unraveling thread by thread. As the sun pierces the fog, the chase begins, a desperate flight into the unknown. Ease into slumber, sensing the tide of fate turning irrevocably. Draw nearer to the climax, where pursuit ends in the grip of justice. On November 16, 1326, near Lantrescen's shadowed woods, Hugh Despenser is captured alongside the king, their flight halted by betrayal's net. Picture the rain-drenched forest, soldiers closing in as Hugh, muddied and bound, stands defiant yet alone. Isabella and Mortimer arrive, their eyes cold as the charges unfold: treason, theft, tyranny. A hasty trial follows in a tented court, the verdict etched before words are spoken. The realm demands reckoning, not exile, but erasure. Geoffrey Le Baker notes how Despenser was despised by all men, his crimes a litany of ruin. This is no fair hearing, but a ritual to purge his influence, to send a message through blood and symbol. The air hums with finality, the king helpless in chains. Whisper softly to yourself, as the story approaches its darkest hour. And now, let the tale reach its somber end in the square of Hereford, where vengeance claims its due. On November 24, 1326, Hugh Despenser faces the scaffold, stripped and mocked with a nettle crown. Dragged through streets on a traitor's hurdle, he endures the realm's fury. The execution is medieval horror, hanged but revived, drawn and quartered, his body desecrated before the crowd. Heart cast to flames, parts scattered to London, York, and beyond, a dismantling to erase tyranny. Edward watches from captivity, his reign crumbling. The Vita Edwardi Secundi declares he perished deservedly, for he had been a destroyer of the realm. What does this reveal? That absolute power invites cycles of vengeance, shaping history's unforgiving wheel. As the echoes fade, dear listener, carry this warning into your dreams. Ambition unchecked leads to ruin. Good night.